A knight there was, and that a worthy man, that from the time that he first began to ride out, he loved chivalry, truth, and honor, freedom, and courtesy.
He has never met an enemy without victory. He has never attacked a town he could not defeat.
We're English, Jeff. We know who he is.
Hello again, and welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, and today we're doing another entry into the series of videos where we ask the question, what do people think is the absolute best, and what do people think is the absolute worst of this franchise of films?
You'll be able to know which one's the best, and which one's the least best. The worst.
As you've seen from the title and the thumbnail, we're focusing on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, otherwise colloquially known as the MCU in acronym form. So, without further ado, we're going to get on first with all of the films that got at least one vote for last place overall. I looked at about 85 different rankings, I think, for this, and about 90 for best. I looked at YouTube ranks, I looked at online article rankings, and then I just also asked about a dozen people in my own personal life, and that counted up to about 85 to 90 votes for each. And then there were also a handful of films that didn't get any votes for either first or last place, so we'll do those in between. But first of all, we'll tackle all the films with at least one vote for worst. There were 16 films with at least one last place vote, and we'll start off with all of the ones that got just a single vote. Since it's getting late and I'm tired and cold, I'm gonna try and rapid fire these as best I can. So without further ado, here's the 7 films that got exactly one vote for last place, starting with Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, while not the most hated film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's one that was certainly reviled upon release by some people and is seen as absolutely one of the worst. I saw it in a lot of bottom fives by a lot of people. And it's definitely one that's seen as remarkable by, the odd person, but really this is not a film that has aged well, at least not in most people's estimations. It's got it came at such a key time in the MCU, in between Infinity War and Endgame, if I recall correctly, and it just, it hasn't proven to be one that has lasted with most people as memorably of great quality. So yeah, I didn't see it high up on many ranks at all, and it's really not very high up for me. It's a standard, sort of very standard, slight period piece superhero film in which a very good actress is saddled with a very, very rote screenplay. There's some, fairly successful de-aging with an actor who physically does not move like a younger man, but, they did all right. It's not the greatest. All right, moving on.
Could we all just wrap it up and go home? Hey, shut up!
Black Panther got one vote for worst, got a bunch for first as well, we'll get to it eventually, but it got one vote for last place, and yeah, there's some people that absolutely hate Black Panther. Not surprising. It's much more loved than it's hated, but it's hated by some. Anyway, moving on. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
I'm done running.
Got one vote for last place. It was given actually these last two, Black Panther and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, were given last place votes by my brothers. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I actually saw with the brother that gave this last place vote, so he was really disappointed in this film. He loves the first two Guardians films, and he absolutely despised this one. And he's kind of the only person I know who despises this, or other than the other brother. Both of them really, really, really hate this movie. But there's some also, there's lots of other people that hate this because of the animal abuse and everything in it, and I can get that. It's not my least favorite Marvel movie, but It's not my favorite either. It's not my favorite Guardians movie by a long shot, but, you know, it's got some controversial elements for sure. Very, very controversial elements. It's a hard watch. Is Guardians Volume 3. Ant-Man and the Wasp.
And I was like, damn, homie, she dumped it when you're on lockup? And he was like, yeah, I know, I thought I was gonna be with it forever, but now I'm all alone.
Got one vote for last place, and yeah, it's one of those meh movies. It's one of the movies that, going into this, I would have assumed wouldn't get any votes for last or first place, and as it stands, it got one for either one, and it was a last place. But yeah, this is one of the most nothing movies in the entire MCU, in my opinion, if I were to have to grab one out of the bag. Ant-Man got one last place vote as well. This surprised me, but, you know, you'll see these anomalies when you get about 90-ish votes, and, yeah, Ant-Man got one, and I don't know, I think this person just did not like the direction they took it, didn't find it very funny, didn't, you know, I don't know, they explained it to me, but I can't remember now, so, moving on. Avengers Age of Ultron got one last place vote.
Come on, Cap.
And this is interesting because all the other three Avengers movies got at least one, and in fact at least three if I'm not mistaken, first place votes, as we'll get to in a little while, but Avengers Age of Ultron got 0 first place votes and 1 last place. It's the only Avengers film that got a last place ranking. It was kind of surprising to me, honestly, because at least most people, I feel like, think this movie is at least competently done. Some people think it's quite bad, and, you know, I was surprised that one person put it absolute bottom, but yeah, I kind of get it. If you're, like, fond of everything else and you think that this movie really, really let you down, if you did not like the way that they adapted Ultron, which a lot of people don't, and yeah, it's a messy movie. It's a messy one. It's the most messy Avengers by far. Yeah. This was still one of the more surprising last place votes for me, though, when I was researching. Deadpool and Wolverine got a last place vote.
Welcome to the MCU, by the way. You're joining at a bit of a low point.
This surprised me because it was just one of the most recent films that got any last or first place votes, but I also get it because it's Deadpool and Wolverine, and it's always going to be controversial because Ryan Reynolds is always just controversial and kind of gross and weird, and Deadpool is always just kind of controversial and gross and weird, and so, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Deadpool. I don't hate the character, and I don't hate the movies. I like the second one quite well, actually, but I just think they're a bit crass in general and a bit overdone and a bit, you know, not clever enough for their own good. You know, the third one's okay. It's just kind of a nostalgia fest. I don't even really think it's any better than Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness or something like that. And I mean, you know, that was a big nostalgia fest too in some ways. But yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine's not really to my taste, and certainly one person really didn't like it. And I've heard a lot of people say that they really hate this one as well, just as much as many people have said they love it, but nobody put it first, so. And then the last one that had exactly one vote for last place was Captain America Civil War.
Does anyone have any orange slices?
Which is interesting, because this one got quite a few votes for first as well. But at least one person thought this is the absolute worst. I think they just, this person, as they explained it to me, they do not like seeing the heroes fight. They don't like the conflict in this film. They didn't feel like the conflict in this film was justified. And I actually kind of agree with that opinion, that the conflict in Captain America Civil War isn't entirely justified, but I also enjoy parts of this film too. I really like the way that some characters are introduced and come together, and how many major characters are in this film. It's like a mini Avengers film. It's basically Avengers 2.5. And so, yeah, Captain America Civil War got the one last place vote, and we'll talk about it again in the last section. With 2 votes for last place was Thor.
Giving speeches while Asgard falls.
You are vain, greedy, cruel boy!
The original Thor, and I was a little bit surprised by this, but I get it. Some people really don't like the simplicity of it. Some people think that it just has not aged well, and that it's kind of creaky, and that the final fight really lacks, and that there's not much good action, and it's just very, very sort of basic. And those things are all kind of true. But I, for my part, really, really like the original Thor. There's a couple of scenes that I absolutely adore in it. In fact, my favorite Loki scene in the entire MCU is in the original Thor, in his debut film. The way that he, in particular, delivers his lines to Anthony Hopkins' Odin when Odin goes into the sleep, when Loki is really upset with him and he's screaming in his face, and Odin collapses on the stairs and he says something like, "No matter how much you claim to love me," and it's just an incredible line delivery. I'll put the clip in now.
Because no matter how much you claim to love me, you could never have a frost giant sitting on the throne of Asgard.
Anyway, I'm fond of the original Thor, but I get it is a simple film. One film that got 4 last place votes was The Marvels.
Where's Kamala?
The recent film that was a team-up between 3 different characters that have some sort of Marvel-related naming convention and some sort of connection to Carol Danvers and/or our Carol Danvers herself. But yeah, this is an odd film. I've seen it once. I think I fell asleep while I was watching it. I'm gonna have to see it again, but it's not high on my list. It's not very high on my list at all. And 4 people thought it was the worst. It's one of the most recent films to have any first or last place votes, and it has 4 to its name so far, so this is not a very liked film at all, and this is a much less liked film than its predecessor, which only got the 1 last place vote, so oi, that's all I have to say. The next film got 5 last place votes, and it was Thor: Love and Thunder.
Take off your disguise and flick.
The most recent Thor film, Thor 4. Even more Thor than ever before, as it is also known, and so by nobody but me. Yeah, this is a film, 5 last place votes. This is a film that is seen as extremely, overly goofy, way too goofy by most people, and I get it. I do laugh at some parts of this film. It's undeniably kind of funny. I don't know. It gets me sometimes. But, I mean, I don't know, maybe you think every joke is cringy and terrible and horrible and unfunny. Yeah, and that's a valid opinion too, but I don't know. It makes me laugh sometimes. It's not anywhere near the top of my list. It's, not that low for me. I don't know. It might be bottom 10, but yeah, I get it. Some people just absolutely hated the humor of this film, but the thing is, if you hate the humor of this film, why? A lot of people love Ragnarok and hate this film, and I don't really get that, because I thought that Ragnarok was overly silly, and I thought that this film was overly silly. I think they're both overly silly, and while I do agree that Ragnarok is a better film, I don't get how they're that far apart in quality. I think they're closer than people usually like to say, but maybe that's just me. However, yes, 5 people put Love and Thunder last, and all 5 of them, to a man or to a woman, said that it was because it was just cringy humor and way too much humor and terrible visuals and wasted characters, and that Thor has been dumbed down into a ridiculous punchline himbo. And that, to a certain extent, is true. Next, with 7 votes for last place, was Iron Man 2. Yes, Iron Man 2 is a film from Phase 1. It was the 3rd, right? It was the 3rd released film in the entire history of the MCU, I'm pretty sure. And it was a pretty incredible movie at the time. We didn't have a lot of these, and so to see a character like Black Widow that would eventually go on to be in so many other movies and have such an impact on the MCU, to see her have such a fantastic debut in this film, and some people find the placement of her in this movie in the role kind of sexist, but I honestly think she's a pretty badass character. I think that, yeah, she's sexualized. And, if you find that problematic, that's valid, but I think that she's pretty badass. I think she really kicks ass. I think she really brings such a swagger, such a power to this film. She's so silent but deadly. She's so in control, and she's got such a great banter with Tony. Tony isn't winning all of their exchanges. Natasha, or Natalie as she's called through much of this film, she's just such an absolute contender. She's such an absolute worthy adversary for whoever she's in the room with. And especially physically by the end, she's just incredible in that fight scene with all the security guards. It's one of still my favorite physical fight scenes in the entire MCU, is her taking down all those guards. It's really, really fun, especially contrasted with Happy's taking down of one of them. It's such a fun moment. And then of course there's Justin Hammer. And so I'm completely defending this film. I know, 7 people find it the worst, which is almost 10% of this entire list, but I love it. I think it's a great movie. It's probably in my top half at least, if not near-ish my own personal top 10. So, yeah, Iron Man 2 is silly, fantastic film. I love Justin Hammer. I love Tony in this. It's got its flaws, and its flaws are large, but its fun is large too. So, yeah, but some people hate it. So, yeah. Yeah, in terms of why you would put it last place, oh gosh. Why would it be last place for somebody? Just I guess the Anton Vanko stuff people really don't connect with. Some people don't like Justin Hammer. It's an early one. It's extremely early. Again, these extremely early phase 1 movies like Thor, like Iron Man 2, they tend to be put last on some lists because they're so early that they're seen as so simple and by the book and rote and sort of finger painting as compared to the rest of the MCU with not very good visuals. That Thor, this one, Thor, Iron Man 2, and the one we're about to discuss in a moment, The Incredible Hulk, are all sort of grouped together as these phase 1 movies that just are put at the bottom of a lot of lists because they're just way far back. They've been around so long, they're so well known, and they were always put below the other ones in phase 1 and the other ones in phase 2, like Iron Man, like the Avengers, and so yeah, they never stood a chance with some people. And that brings us very tidily to, with 12 last place ranks, The Incredible Hulk.
Now she'll see.
The Incredible Hulk, for one thing, is, of course, the only film that stars a person that was then recast in the next film that the character appeared in, and so, it's just kind of such a red-headed stepchild of the entire franchise. And yeah, we've upticked very drastically from 7 votes all the way to 12 for last place. The last 4 films we're going to discuss here all have at least 12 last place rankings. And so The Incredible Hulk, again, I think it gets these because, again, it's so early and it's the only one starring Ed Norton, and it's so apart from the others. And some people don't even rank it. That's how much they keep it apart from the others. But yeah, I don't think it's anywhere near the worst quality-wise of the entire MCU, but it is, again, one of the more simple. I think the Hulk is actually really cool looking in this movie, the Hulk itself. And I think that Ed Norton is really, really good in it. And I even love Emil Roth as the Abomination, but it's a simple one. It's not the best ever directed film in the franchise. And it wasn't followed up on in any form of sequel until very recently with Captain America 4, Brave New World. So, yeah, it never got a direct sequel with the Hulk starring. So yeah, it's just kind of an unfortunate film that was a bit of a dead end in many ways, but some of the actors, of course, held over. Yeah, this one got big votes for last. Next with exactly 12 was Eternals.
Enough.
Yeah, Eternals is one which all these 12 people basically described it as boring. It's one of the films, in fact, the film out of the entire list that the most people described as boring, other than the one that we will discuss last. But this one is just one of the longest films in the MCU. In fact, it might be the second longest. I'm not sure on that, if that's exactly accurate. Probably not now. It might be third or fourth now, but it's very, very long. And it's got so many lead characters. It's got to establish all of them because none of them have appeared in anything before. Like, contrary to how the MCU usually does things, where they seed stuff really carefully, sometimes even a little too carefully, like where they seed things in so many movies and coming back and, oh, and this was 7 years ago, this was 3 years ago, this was 18 years ago, this was from a movie that we did in 2009, and this was from 2017, and this is from 2 weeks ago. In a Disney Plus show. And it's just, it's all higgledy-piggledy, but contrary to all that, careful or stupid seeding, Eternals has all these characters debut in this one film together, and we've never heard of any of them before, and it's also a different kind of film than anything in the MCU has been before, and by that we mean it's boring and slow, and directed by somebody like Chloe Zhao, who's this sort of acclaimed art house Oscar-winning young hotshot director who doesn't know how to do a thing with a big budget and a superhero script. Like, it's not the worst film I've ever seen, but it's just, it is a snorefest in some ways. It absolutely is. And it's weird, and the characters are a real grab bag, and I love some, and I can't stand some others. So yeah, it is a mixed bag, Eternals, and it got 12 for last, and I get it. But this one was, even when it came out, this film was famously the first film that broke and I think it might still be the only film to have broken the theatrically released MCU film Rotten Tomatoes fresh score streak, because they had this stupid streak of like, every film is fresh, every film is at least 60% on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes is incredibly fraudulent and bought, by the way, and ridiculous, and I want to make a video eventually someday about exactly the ways in which Rotten Tomatoes is fraudulent with their numbers and cooks their books and cooks their math. I actually have discovered some specific ways in which Rotten Tomatoes doctors review scores. And they should be very nervous for when that video eventually comes out, when this channel is a little bit bigger, but we shall see someday. Anyway.
But never mind that now.
The MCU had this very famous streak of fresh scores on Rotten Tomatoes with all their theatrical releases, and finally it was broken with the Eternals getting like, I think 43% or something like that, but it was quite low, and that was one thing that really always stuck out about this movie as a sore thumb, or sort of a black eye on the MCU, and stuck in people's craws and people's minds, and got this placed at the bottom of a lot of people's ranks. And also, they just didn't like it very much and found it boring. So, the second to last one we'll look at had 16 votes for last place, so almost 20% of the ranks here. This was also my personal pick out of the 16 votes, so one of them was mine. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Have I killed you before?
What?
Yeah, so Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Ant-Man 3, I can't stand this film, and neither could 15 other people, but I just think, and this was also, it appeared in, across the board, people's bottom 3s, bottom 5s. It was very, very, very seldom was it anywhere near the top, even half of people's lists. So I think if you did an average of those rankings, then you would find it just, an average of 33rd or 4th or 5th or something like that. Just something terrible. But yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a boring, confusing, overlong, ugly visually mess with just all these performances, and Jonathan Majors just stinking up the joint, and the script is just so confusing and unbelievable and just so over the top, just science out the wazoo. Everybody's a dang genius and can do anything, anytime, anywhere, and it's just utter meaningless fantasy tripe. It's just incoherent garbage on screen. Like, there's a few laughs to be had, I suppose. There's a few fun, charming moments, but otherwise, this is just crap. And also, the way that this was cut off from the rest of the MCU, Incredible Hulk style, because Jonathan Majors is a domestic abuser, basically.
All that said, right? And I'm not saying I'm a great man. A great man. I am doing great things, not just for me, but for my culture and for the world. That is actually the position I'm in.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
This movie, Jonathan Majors' real life crimes made this film have to be a complete dead end story-wise as well, and so it sticks out in a very negative way in that way for a lot of people, and for me in particular. I just can't enjoy his performance at all, not only because it's bad, but also just because he's a piece of crap person. And I don't, cast judgment on too many people, but I do cast judgment on that man. Go retire with your Coretta and just give up acting. It's not for you.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is terrible. It's the worst one, in my opinion, in the opinion of 15 other very intelligent people. And Jonathan Majors is a Majors reason why. But yeah, there's so many reasons why even the charm of Paul Rudd cannot even get close to saving this dumpster fire of an absolute trash heap of a film. Horrible. 1 out of 10. And then the last film with the most votes out of all of the 86 I did, by a couple, was with 19 last place rankings, Thor: The Dark World. Now, why was Thor: The Dark World the winner here, or the loser, I suppose, with the most ranks for last with 19? One big thing, I think, is that it was the first film that was seen as a failure out and out from the first 2 phases, I think. I think all of the other films were seen as successes in some way. Even The Incredible Hulk made quite a bit of money. And Thor: The Dark World did make money, but it just, it had the worst Rotten Tomatoes score up until that point, and it just it was seen as just a dud. It was seen as the first film that had a really underwhelming villain, for one thing, and it was just seen as the one where oh yeah, we skip this one in the rewatches, or this is where we take our nap when we watch them all the way through. Thor: The Dark World it got this reputation early on, especially when it came out, and in the few years after when people started doing rankings, it got this reputation as just being the butt of the joke, of just being the by default worst one, the one that, oh yeah, we all agree this is the worst one, right? And I think that in recent years, with the releases of phases 4 and 5 and going into 6, I think that we've got, we didn't realize how spoiled we were with, Thor: The Dark World being the absolute worst thing we'd ever seen from this franchise. Woo boy, we've seen some much bigger stinkers since then, in my opinion. But even still, it has retained that reputation because it was such an early film and because it was seen as such a big failure by their standards so early on, and for such a marquee character of theirs, Thor, after, following up the first Avengers being such a massive success, and Thor comes off that film and then does this kind of, wet fart, as a lot of people would describe it, of a film. Just coming off the heels of the insane global phenomenon, worldwide smash hit that was the first Avengers film. Yeah, Thor: The Dark World, I can see why it was seen as a bit of a step down, a letdown, and a disappointment. I don't think it's the worst. I don't even think it really is even in the bottom 3. I don't think it's the worst film I've ever seen. I think it's got a bit of a charm to it. I think it's got a lot of really fun, silly scenes. It's not a great film, but I love the scene of Frigga's funeral. I think it's beautiful. What a lovely, lovely scene with a lovely score there. So there's nice emotional moments too occasionally, but yeah, it got that reputation early on, and it's kept it throughout the last 15-ish years that it's been around, and just following up on the heels of all of those successes that were coming before it through phase 1. It was seen as a major misstep in the early years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that was all of the films, all the 16, with at least 1 vote for last place in all of the ranks that I looked at. Now moving on to the 8 films that did not get any ranks at all, first or last place. There were exactly 8 out of the 37 films released so far that did not get a single first or last place rank. But before we go on to those, it's time for a little smoke break.
How mild, how mild, how mild can a cigarette be? Make the Camel 30-day test and you'll see.
Well, that smoke break turned into a break of several days, but we carry on with a short word on all of the films that got 0 votes for first or last place. There were 8 of these films, and they are Spider-Man: Homecoming,
Hey, Gary, how you doing?
Marjorie, how are you? How's your mother?
Spider-Man: Far From Home,
See, that wasn't so hard.
Black Widow,
Such a poser. Ugh, that was disgusting.
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness,
That was probably me.
Black Panther: Wakanda Forever,
Yeah, I got it.
Captain America: Brave New World, Thunderbolts ** The New Avengers, and The Fantastic Four: First Steps.
Billions of years ago, a man from another world.
Those 8 films got no votes for last or first, and to just put a word on all of them briefly, Fantastic Four, First Steps, Thunderbolts, Captain America, Brave New World are all 3 the 3 that came out in 2025, and thus they're the 3 most recent, and I think that they're just so recent that nobody's been able to put them at the very top or bottom because they're not obviously either one, although I have seen Captain America, Brave New World at the very least get at least quite a few bottom 5 placements, and I think a couple bottom 2 placements, but no very bottom of the list. And Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is just a film that most people see as fairly mid. Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts were mostly liked by most people that saw them. And then Captain America: Brave New World was not liked all that much. It was, the most hated of those 3 last year, but still not seen as absolute garbage by most people, and certainly, again, not bottom of the pile for anybody. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and Black Widow as well were the 2 that got closest, I think, other than the new Captain America, to having bottom placements. They're, again, movies that are seen as probably worse than mid by most people. I kind of like the second Doctor Strange movie, if only just because I like Sam Raimi weirdness, but I am not a big fan of Black Widow myself for many reasons. But yeah, they're both films that a lot of people do passionately dislike, though, is the thing. And I know that, and so I was surprised that absolutely nobody put either one of them bottom of the pile, but these are the interesting things you find when you look at these subjects. But yeah, Doctor Strange is just seen as a really corny film by a lot of people, really silly, and sort of like Thor: Love and Thunder, which got quite a few votes for last, where people just, I think they came out in the same year, or at the very least only about a year apart, but they were both seen as extremely silly films and too silly for their own good. And even though I'm kind of a fan of Multiverse of Madness, I can see where people are coming from. And Black Widow is just kind of a disappointing film on a lot of fronts, and the fact that it came out way, way late, bugs a lot of people, but hey, no last places. And certainly no firsts for any of those. I think probably the closest to getting a first out of any of these eventually might be Thunderbolts. Might be somebody's first one day, but it needs some time. And then Spider-Man: Homecoming and Spider-Man: Far From Home not getting any votes for last place makes sense, because most people like these movies at least, and some people are out on the second one, but at least, I'd say 9 out of 10 MCU fans, if not more, like the first Spider-Man: Homecoming. But no first places surprised me for at least that one as well, because Spider-Man Homecoming is so well liked. I was surprised that absolutely nobody put it number one. It had a couple of top 5 finishes for sure that I saw. But the fact that the Vulture is so well liked and Tom Holland is so well liked in the role right away, I expected 1 or 2 votes, but none. And then Far From Home, I thought might get a last place vote because some people really, really dislike it, but again, it was just like middle of the pile for most people. So, those are the 8 that got none for nothing. And now on to all of the films that got at least 1 vote for Best MCU Film of All Time. Of which there are 17, starting with Doctor Strange with 1 vote. Yes, Doctor Strange got 1, and this one surprised me a little bit just because I see some people put it very high, but I don't usually see people put it in the top, 2 or 3. But this film really, really appeals to some people. It's just Caecilius that lets a lot of people down, but then again, you have another backup villain in Dormammu, so you kind of have your choice of the big bad in that film, who you consider to be the main villain. And either way, it's just a film that, like the original Iron Man, a lot of people really compare it to and just really connect with. And they love Cumberbatch's performance right off the bat. They love Scott Derrickson's direction. Scott Derrickson is a wonderful horror director who brought just an incredible sensibility to this film, and it's a really excellent film visually. They did the magic in such a immediately grab you by the seat of your pants way. Benedict Wong is instantly incredible in the role of Wong. It's quite a marvelous film in some ways, so I totally get it. But yeah, I was a little surprised, but it got 1 first place vote, as did the original Thor.
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Yeah, Thor got another. And this one, again, kind of surprises me, but again, not really. It's sort of, if I were to compare it to a film in the last franchise I did in this series of videos, what do people think is the best and worst? In the Pixar franchise, I'd say that Thor is sort of like Cars, the original Cars, in that it came out in the first phase, sort of the golden era of Pixar, the first phase of the MCU. And they're sort of seen as the odd ones out, if you're not counting the Hulk, the odd ones out of the main ones that would continue or be held in iconic esteem, in that they're kind of basic and simple, but still, good and satisfying, and people have a lot of nostalgia for them, and some people think they're amazing, and some people think they weren't ever all that great. A lot of people think they weren't ever all that great, and some people think they're one of the best ever. Yeah, Thor and Cars are really talked about similarly in terms of the MCU and the Pixar canons, if you look at a lot of rankings. And so it got similar to Cars. I think Cars also got just 1 first place vote for the Pixar best and worst lists, and Thor got 1. And yeah, I like it a lot. It's a great movie, I think. I think, for me, Loki is actually best in Thor. Tom Hiddleston's performance in the first Thor film blows me away in a way that he never does after that. Even though he's great in every single appearance as Loki, he never absolutely blows my mind the way he does in the first Thor. What a great scene he has with Odin. 6 more films got just exactly 1 first place vote, the next one being Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, that's good. That was it.
Wow.
Spider-Man No Way Home, aka the third Spider-Man film in the MCU, getting a first place vote to me makes sense, and if anything, I was expecting actually a couple more for this one, because it is such a perfect nostalgia bait film. Like, it is nostalgia bait, but it's member berries made into the finest wine you've ever tasted. It's just it's sort of something ridiculous that shouldn't work but does, in my opinion. And some people think it's overdone, and some people think the hook is too silly for the story, and I get those criticisms, but at the end of the day, I do love seeing all of these actors on screen together at the same time. I do love a multiverse done well, and to me, this is a multiversal tale done well, so I have a lot of affection for Spider-Man No Way Home. It's certainly pretty high on my personal list, and it makes sense that it got a first-place vote to me. Another that got a first-place vote was Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is by far one of the most polarizing and controversial films in the entire history of the MCU. The decision to make the Mandarin not the Mandarin, and to have it be Aldrich Killian instead, and to have Trevor Slattery be the actor portraying the fictional Mandarin in this tale, even though we did get a Mandarin eventually, the decision to do a fake out here in 2013, I believe, was just so bold and so freaking risky, and gosh, some people absolutely love it, some people hate it, some people are kind of indifferent to it, not many, but most people are one way or the other if they've seen this film and know anything about it and are any kind of an MCU fan. They probably have strong feelings about the twist at the end of Iron Man 3 either way. Me, myself, I think it works because I just think Trevor Slattery is hilarious, and also I think Aldrich Killian's a perfectly fine villain. I think it's fine. It might not have been as cool as doing the actual Mandarin all the way through, but I do think Trevor Slattery is so funny, and I do love him showing up in Shang-Chi so much that I think it works. I think it works for me. So, yeah. It's damn high on my list as well, this one, actually. It works quite well. It's not number one for me, but it's up there. But it got one first-place vote. I was a little bit surprised by that, but I was actually a little bit surprised that it didn't get even a single last-place vote, because the twist is so very hated by some MCU fans, but c'est la vie, so only one for first. And speaking of that other one, Shang-Chi got one first-place vote as well. This one is one of the more recent ones that's getting any first-place vote so far. It was only a few years ago, and I think if you asked most MCU fans, you'd get a majority of them saying that this is probably the best film made post-Endgame. Either this or Spider-Man No Way Home. But Shang-Chi is very high up there for a lot of people, as it is for me personally. It's a recent one that feels like a film that's a throwback to Phase 1 in terms of how well it introduces its character, and it doesn't feel overly connected to the rest of the MCU. It's a nice sort of film that you could even start a rewatch with in some ways and just sort of ping around from there. But it's a film that really stands on its own, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm not surprised it got a first-place vote. It's sort of, if I were to compare it to a Pixar film, it's sort of like Soul's reputation now for Pixar, where Soul was just a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now, and it's rapidly gained a reputation as one of the best films that Pixar has released since their golden age, if not the very best for most people. And so it's not one of my absolute favorites, but I just see the reputation it's gained, and I'd compare it to that of Shang-Chi. But yes, Shang-Chi got one first-place vote, wasn't a surprise to me, and it certainly was never going to get a last-place vote. Moving on to another Thor film, Thor Ragnarok, with just the one.
Get the hell out of this place.
That's exactly what Doug used to say. See you later, new Doug.
This one was not a shock to me, and if anything, I expected it to get a few more first-place votes, because this is a very popular film within the MCU. It's a film that people find absolutely hilarious. It's where they think Thor, usually most people say they peaked as a character, where he was funny but still serious enough to anchor the film emotionally, whereas they think in Thor Love and Thunder, whereas they think in Thor Love and Thunder, whereas I think in Thor Love and Thunder, they went too silly with his character and jumped the cosmic shark and just made him a bit of a himbo buffoon. But in Thor Ragnarok, they think that he was just done perfectly right. And in my opinion, they actually went a little bit too far in this one. I'm one of those people that is sort of unusual and thinks that this one was already a little bit of a step too far with the humor. And I actually enjoy both of those later Thor films. I'm one of the unusual people that genuinely enjoys all 4 Thor films, to varying degrees, of course. My favorite, if you must know, is the first one, but they're all, I think, fun and interesting in their own ways. But yeah, Ragnarok got 1. I'm surprised it didn't get more. Moving on to the last 2 that got exactly 1 first-place vote. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Excuse me. Gotta take a whiz.
Yes, these are really quite interesting and interestingly polarizing films. We'll get to the original Guardians of the Galaxy in a while because it got multiple first place votes. But 2 and 3, so also this is the only franchise I think that got a first place vote for every single one of its films, Guardians. So perhaps by that mark, it is the most beloved MCU franchise overall. That's interesting. The most beloved MCU trilogy is Guardians of the Galaxy. That would make sense. The original Captain America trilogy as well all have votes for first, as we will see. But it has a fourth film that got 0 first place votes and is not likely to get a first place vote. So I would say that now that Captain America has had that fourth installment, Guardians is perhaps by default the most acclaimed overall MCU franchise by the MCU's fans themselves. But anyway, moving on from that observation, 2 gets first place votes because it's one of the best MCU films, damn it. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is one of my absolute favorites. I just think it's a brilliant, brilliant film. I think Ego's an amazing villain. I think the whole cast has interesting things to do all throughout. I think it's very funny. I think the soundtrack is top 1 maybe of MCU films. I think it's that good. What a soundtrack. Maybe top 2 or 3. But I think it's the best Guardians film because it has the best villain of the 3 of them. And it's just... yeah, it's a special, special movie. I adore it. It makes sense to me that it got a first place vote, at least 1, and I was not surprised it didn't get more, but, you know, I would have called this, I think. And then number 3 getting one, a little bit, this one's a little bit more controversial than the first 2, I would say. The first one is the most beloved out of all 3 of them. The second one is hated by some, but loved by most. And then the third, I would say, because of the subject matter later on in the story, because of the sort of things that happen to animals in it, basically, what the high, what's his name, does to them. Who is an actor, by the way, Chuck Woody, that I have seen on stage play Henry VI, and it was cool as hell. I got his autograph. It's right over there. But he was incredible as the High Intellectual, was it? I can't remember. High Evolutionary? Yeah, High Evolutionary. But he kills that role. He's marvelous as that villain. The film is a lot, and it's one of the films that got a last place vote as well as a first place vote on this list as well. And I can see why for both. But it's one of the more controversial films that we've seen from the MCU in the last few years, but also one of the more successful ones we've seen, and clearly one of the more beloved, as it got this vote. But yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I almost struggle to know what to say about it. It's a big movie. It's hard to watch, honestly. I like it in some ways, and in some ways I don't. But yeah, it's a tough one for me to even know what to say. But moving on with the only film that got exactly 2 first place votes, Captain America: The First Avenger.
Is this a test? He's still skinny.
Captain America... Captain America...
He doesn't do anything?
Captain America: The First Avenger is one of my, again, personal favorite films in the MCU. It's just such a wonderfully nostalgic film, in a real way, not just nostalgic for the MCU, because it was one of the first films. So it's not nostalgic in the way that later MCU films are for earlier MCU. It's nostalgic in a way for, earlier in our existence as a species, earlier, in the 20th century. It's a film that's... It's just a beautifully done period piece. It's really, really nice. And so I love Chris Evans in it. He's just marvelous. I think that the visual effects are really quite remarkable with making him a teeny little man. And I think Haley Atwell's wonderful as Peggy Carter. She might never be better than she is here. In terms of the MCU, they're just a terrific pairing. You actually see their romance play out more than in any other film. Of course, because this is the one where they're the same age. And it's just, it's remarkably sweet, earnest, sincere film. The kind of film that the MCU doesn't really make anymore, and I wish they would. Fantastic Four: First Steps was a little bit more like it than anything else. It was, Fantastic Four: First Steps was the most like this film of any film I've seen them make in a long time, but still, this one stands apart as, I think, easily by a pretty wide country mile, the MCU's best period piece film to date, the best film set in a different time altogether from the audience watching it. And now with exactly 3 first place votes, another Captain America film, Captain America Civil War.
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude.
Yeah, this is a favorite for a lot of people. This one is really high on most people's lists. This one is up there, almost always top 15, top 10, top 5 in everybody's lists is Civil War. So it's essentially also Avengers 2.5. It's basically an Avengers film in between Ultron and Infinity War, just without only the Hulk and Thor. But it's got everybody else at the time who was in the team or had been. And so it's a huge team-up film. It introduces a ton of really important characters, especially Black Panther and Spider-Man. And so it's just, it's one of those films that's a real huge pivot point in the history of the MCU. It was sort of a level-up film. It's almost like I would have compared it to the MCU's Fast Five. It's sort of the one that supercharged it and took the franchise to the next level in a lot of people's eyes. But yeah, it's a movie that people really, really like the conflict between the characters. Some people absolutely hate it. It got 1 last place vote as well. So it's one of the other films that got a first and a last place vote. But it got 3 firsts, and people love the conflict between Cap and Tony mostly. I'm not a huge fan of it. But I like some aspects of this film. The central conflict I'm not a huge fan of. I do love all of the characters in it, and I love just seeing a big team-up movie. But yeah, some people absolutely do not like at all seeing the characters, the heroes fighting each other, and most people really quite liked that, so it's a slightly controversial one, but it's one that is generally quite beloved, and then you've got the occasional person who's quite out on it. And that's the reputation of Civil War. The other film to get exactly 3 first place votes was the original Avengers, or as it was known outside of the US, I believe, or at the very least in the UK, Avengers Assemble.
Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry.
The original Avengers is, again, no surprise to see with first place votes. In fact, again, I was a little bit surprised to see this one, similar to Civil War, because it is so beloved still, get only 3. But I think this one is seen as a little bit basic by people's standards now, a little bit sort of quaint in terms of the team-up, which is insane to think about, that, that the original Avengers is seen as quaint in terms of a team-up, when at the time it was absolutely mind-boggling. It was revolutionary is what it was, in terms of just box office, in terms of appeal, in terms of like, oh my god, that guy and that guy and that guy and her and him and her and him. Holy crap, all on the screen at the same time. And they look kind of comic accurate. Like, we've been spoiled in recent years with stuff like No Way Home and stuff like Endgame and Infinity War for all these characters on screen at the same time. But the original Avengers, you gotta remember, the time it came out, it was astonishing to see a team-up of 6 in one. And so this film, again, basic by today's standards in terms of like a big one, but it gets everything done right. It's such a meat and potatoes film. Like it just hits all the beats. It does it competently, and some of them are really super entertaining. It's a really solid film. It's got great character interactions. It's got a wonderful coming together of the team by the end of it. It's a real rousing, basic, satisfying film. It's one you pop on and you always have fun with, in my opinion, for me, at least in my experience, as an MCU fan. And so, yeah, the original Avengers earned its 3 votes for first place.
And you have earned the new puppy that's coming with us to the White House.
Jumping up in percentage now by more than 2 times with 7 first place votes, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1.
You've seen this, right? You know what that is. Yeah. Everyone knows.
No.
This one again, I think this can be said for all of the rest of the 6 going forward. but this one is really no surprise to see at the top of some people's lists. This film is beloved. People adore Guardians of the Galaxy. I was, again, expecting this to get actually into the double digits. I was really surprised it didn't with how many votes I took for first. But Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 is one of those MCU films that's just basically on a lot of people's Mount Rushmore for the MCU. It's seen as, the best way to introduce sort of obscure characters, the best ragtag team film that the MCU's ever done. A lot of people think it's straight up obviously the best film, but even if they don't think it's the best film, a lot of people think it's the best team-up film over any of the Avengers movies. And yeah, I can see why. It's got an incredible central cast, all giving great performances. It's got such a dang vibe. This is such a vibe movie. It's got an impeccable just beat and swing to it. You can just absolutely get into this movie so easily, have so much fun with it. It's so silly and funny, and it's never too serious for too long, but it's never too unserious for too long. It's a really perfect balance with the humor. My only big complaint with it, and why I don't have it like super duper near the top of my list, is just because I think that Ronan is a really weak villain, and I think that's a sentiment that's echoed by a lot of people, but other than that, it's a really damn strong film, and I totally get why people have it at the top of their lists, and 7 people did, so you go, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. 7 for you. And now jumping up once again, we have 2 films with 11 votes for first place, the first of which is the original Iron Man.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps!
I am Iron Man.
So yeah, this one, actually I'll spoil it for you now, but I'll eventually do a ranking video myself, but this is my pick for number 1. This is my favorite and number 1 MCU film. It has been since the very beginning, and it's never changed. I don't think that they've ever improved on the perfection of their first release. It is just that great. I adore it. And I get why 11 people out of the 90-ish votes I took chose it. It's remarkable. It's one of those movies that just, it gets better with time. The more you go back to it, the more you realize it's just the most perfectly crafted action-adventure film ever. It's got an amazing lead character with a truly transcendent performance from Robert Downey Jr. It's really good on the page, but he utterly resurrects his on-screen career with this performance. Of course, there were a lot of other things he was doing leading up to this, like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and he did Sherlock Holmes around the same time, which was another huge hit for him. It was just a little bit after this, I think, but this film in particular, Iron Man, was really what Robert Downey Jr. used to return to the absolute top of the mountain in terms of the entertainment industry, and as an actor on screen, just in terms of, getting to choose his parts and do whatever the heck he wanted, and having control over his career. And so it's so important to him, it's so important to the MCU, it's the one that started it all, and it just really is that good. It's got a great villain with Obadiah Stane. I think he's still a top 5 MCU villain, in my opinion. He might still be my number 1. I love Jeff Bridges on screen that much. Gwyneth Paltrow is maybe her best ever in this, in terms of the MCU, and they've got a great romance. I love the romance in this movie. It's so well written. I think that for all his ridiculous off-screen antics, Terrence Howard is quite solid in this, and his chemistry with Robert Downey Jr. is great. I'm using great a lot, but it's a great film. And yeah, I just adore it. I love it. I watch it pretty often. It's one of my most common rewatches from any franchise. And yeah, Iron Man really deserves these 11 votes, one of which 10 others and mine. On to the other film with exactly 11 votes for first place, Black Panther.
Stand up. You are a king.
Black Panther, yeah, I get it. It's not one of my absolute favorites. I think it's, if anything, one of the more overrated films in the MCU. I think it's always been a little bit overrated. It was one of those films that came out at the perfect time for itself, the absolute perfect time for its own, message to be heard and for itself to flourish and to be, again, overrated and overhyped. This was a film where people really wanted to see a black lead in the MCU, a black superhero film in general, since people talked about there being none, there weren't none. There was Blade, there was stuff like that. There was a whole Blade trilogy. But It's a film where people were like, oh, finally, it's we have this great representation. It's not really great representation. A lot of people have a lot of really valid criticisms of how it depicts Africa, but anyway, all of that aside, because I'm not really qualified to talk about that, and it's not because of my skin color, I just don't really know. But in terms of a film, it's not a very great film. It's an okay film. I think Chadwick Boseman is incredible. I'm not giving my review. Anyway, why do people think it's the best? I'm sorry. I get into it because I just think that this movie is just okay. The thing that gets my goat about it, I guess, is that in a lot of the rankings I saw, a lot of people cited its cultural importance for putting it at the top. And that's what gets me. It's like, are these really rankings of the MCU films then? Like, if you're putting the cultural importance aspect into it, I don't know. I don't get that. We're talking about the quality of the film, I think. And the quality of the film, I don't think is a 10 out of 10. Like some of the MCU, in my opinion, is. It's a perfect. I don't think it's like the worst thing ever. I'd probably give it like a 7.5 or an 8. But my point is that a lot of the people of the 11 who gave it a first place vote. I think at least 4 or 5 times I read, or 5 or 6 of them said, "Oh, it's such an important film. It's such a timely film. It's a film that we have to like revere." It just. I don't know, it's just such freaking glaze, and I just roll my eyes when I read that. Like, can we just talk about the quality of the films? If you truly think it's the best, totally, and there are some people who truly think it's the best, why do people truly think it's the best if they do truly think that? I mean, it's another film that is a vibe. It's like Guardians, it is a bit of a vibe where, it's got a really good soundtrack, it's well made. Ryan Coogler's a very good director. And it's got an incredible actor in the lead and an incredible actor in the villain, even though I agree with some people who think that Killmonger's kind of cringy. I think he's kind of cringy, but still, Michael B. Jordan's a great actor, and Chadwick Boseman was an incredible actor. I hate saying was, but he was. Lupita Nyong'o is so good. Like, the cast is impeccable. And so, yeah, it's one of the better MCU casts. I think the story's kind of garbage, and I think, again, the cultural depictions are, from what I've heard, kind of garbage. But those are the aspects that I have a bone to pick with. But yeah, the music is great, the vibes are great, the performances are great, the cast is fantastic. It's the director really knows what he's doing. So there's a lot going for this movie. It has a lot going for it, and it was a big deal in terms of the MCU. It had a lot of stuff that happened in terms of the MCU, not even just in terms of the story, but in terms of the way that they started making films after this. It was a big impact on the franchise. So it's important, even if you don't think it's the best, or even if you do. So yeah, that's, Black Panther's got a lot going for it. Moving up a couple more ticks, we have with exactly 13 votes for first place overall, and in third place on our list, Avengers: Infinity War.
Magic with a kick! Magic with a...
Why do people think Avengers: Infinity War is the best? Or some people at least. Well, Avengers: Infinity War is just, honestly, I was actually surprised as I was going through and tallying these votes. I was surprised that this did not get the most votes overall, because this feels to me almost like the default answer for a lot of people. It's almost like the Pinocchio or the Lion King of the MCU, where it's just like, oh yeah, that's the best one. It's got all of the heroes in it. It's got, and not that people don't like truly feel that it is the best, but it's almost like the safest answer for a best MCU film is Infinity War, because it's so well made. Thanos is so fantastic in it. It's got so many heroes that are all just firing on all cylinders. And if you don't like Captain Marvel, it doesn't have Captain Marvel in it. But I don't mind Captain Marvel. She's fine. I'm just saying, if you don't like her, she's not in this one. And so it's a really, really great team-up film. It really just, again, hits all the marks, the check marks, fires on all cylinders in terms of, oh, this character on screen, this one on screen, now this one, this pod of characters, this pod of characters. It does a great job of keeping the groups together in themselves, but also separate from each other, so that they're not working together too much, so that Thanos can ping around and do all of his dark deeds without being tripped up by all of them. And the way that he acquires all of the stones is just so satisfyingly evil. He's a great villain. Like, if you think that Thanos is the best villain and you think he's best in this, then you probably think that this is the best MCU film, and that's a lot of people. But yeah, Infinity War has so much going for it. Great performances, the freaking snap itself, like, wow. So the dusting, it's got the most heartbreaking ending of any MCU film, unless you think the death of Iron Man at the end of Endgame is even more heartbreaking, but probably this one. It's got the most gut-wrenching and sort of take-your-breath-away ending of any MCU film. It's a gut punch, it really is. And so, yeah, there's a huge amount of things that this film has going for it, and that's why a lot of people think it's the best. And moving on to just one tick higher with 14 votes for first overall is its pair and its successor, Avengers Endgame.
Avengers! Assemble.
So yes, in number 2 on our list, overall we have Avengers Endgame. Honestly, it was a little bit of a surprise that this got even one more first place vote than Infinity War, because when you talk to people, most MCU fans, hell of a lot of them will say, oh yeah, Avengers Endgame's great, but Infinity War is the better one. It's actually the better of the two, and it's, and usually when they say that, well, not usually, but often when they say that, they'll say that it's number 1 overall. But actually, this 14-13 beat Infinity War, so Endgame, to my surprise, might be turning the tide and be a little bit more highly regarded, at least by the majority of people. We'll see. To me, it feels like it's, again, kind of a safe answer, and not that that's a bad thing. All of these at the top are kind of safe answers because they're just the most acclaimed and the most beloved. But it's the one that, again, hits all the check marks, and if you like a satisfying ending, then you love Endgame. If you like an ending that really tells you where all of the story beats just were cut off, and we learned about everybody's story, and we got the deaths, and we got the highs, and we got the lows, and we got the saviors, and we got the sacrifices, and we got the big fights, and the emotional moments. If you love all of that, and you love being swept up in 3 hours of silliness and seriousness and action and payoffs. If you love payoffs, then you love Endgame, and a lot of people love payoffs. And a lot of people love the heroes coming back and smacking the villain in the face after they lost, and that's what this is too. And a lot of people love Fat Thor. This movie has a lot going for it, and of course it's got maybe the most powerful moment in the entire MCU in I Am Iron Man. And so it's just... What a movie Endgame is. What a theater experience that was for me. To see this in theaters in a packed room with people cheering their heads off. It was fun. It was a moment in time. And if you weren't there, well, you just had to be there. Yeah, that was Endgame. But it's only number 2 on this list, because coming in at number 1 with 17 votes out of, I think it's 89. But coming in number 1 with 17 votes for first place overall, the one film that I have not mentioned yet, and if you're good at process of elimination, then you'll know exactly which one I'm about to say, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Does anyone want to get out?
The last question of the day that we will answer is, why do people think that Captain America: The Winter Soldier is the best MCU film? Well, again, I think it is largely the vibe. I think that people adore the spy thriller feeling of this film. I think that they love the tricksiness, the twistiness, the who's working for who can Steve trust kind of feeling of it. I think that people love the introduction of Sam Wilson. People adore the reintroduction of Bucky. People think he's one of the absolute best villains in the MCU and one of the best characters overall, and I would largely agree. He's incredible in this film. The action is fantastic. The hand-to-hand combat is really well done and really well filmed. It's filmed very nicely overall. It's got these big twists, like Zola being, in the machine. It's got, again, Bucky coming back, the whole Hydra being infiltrated in S.H.I.E.L.D. It's got huge implications for the rest of the MCU as well. It's a huge, again, like Captain America: Civil War, it's a huge pivot point in the MCU where the story expanded and exploded and just went completely left when we were looking right. And so know, it's one of the most important films in terms of the history of the MCU's story on screen and the MCU's story off screen as well. It was just so beloved at the time. It was the Russo brothers' first film, I think, in the MCU as well, and they went on to do Infinity War and Endgame and Civil War and so many of these films that get first place votes. So the Russo brothers hit the ground running, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one. First shot out of the gate. They just, let's put even more metaphors in there, stuff the metaphors in, host. But yeah, they really killed it first time around. They made a film that people just go back to again and again and again and look to even after all these years, over a decade later, and say, you know what? That one was the best that there's ever been. Captain America the Winter Soldier just captures people's imaginations in a way that almost no other MCU film ever has. And so, for its wonderful action, for its excellent performances, for its really fun, twisty story, this one got 17 first place votes. And that's all of them. That's every single film the MCU has ever released, and all of its first place, last place, and no place votes, all 37 of them. I think it was 89 votes overall, and now at the end of the video, I'm just going to read out who all of those votes were from. They were from 3 different sources: YouTube video rankings, online article rankings that I just looked up, and finally, there was a handful of people that I just know. And so when you hear a first name, that's usually just going to be a friend of the channel, but that was about 10 votes, and then the other 2 sources were about 40 each. So without further ado, I'm going to read all of the votes now. Everyone who gave at least 1 vote in no particular order: Jones Vibes, Screen Rant, Games Radar, Complex, Men's Health, Jesse the Contrarian, The AV Club, Bounding into Comics, The Digital Fix, Nerdist, Consequence of Sound, Out of Lives, USA Today, GameSpot, Joe, Cody, Sully Streams, Variety, Time, Space, I asked space and time this question. The concepts of space and time, I asked them. Yeah, not the magazines, but the celestial concepts. Slash Film, Sci-Fi, Den of Geek, The Film Magazine, Miscellaneous Musings, Movie Phone, The Odyssey Online, Stacker, High Def Digest, Peak News Magazine, J. Carlin, Sean Chandler, The Boba Culture, Dexerto, Stuff, Tech Radar, Sweet and Sour Reviews, Scoop Whoop, The Cosmic Broadcast, Joseph Marchione, Moist Critical, Whole Shebang, Aryan P, Film Stalked, IndieWire, Esquire, Time Out, I did not mean for that to rhyme, Time Out, Polygon, Kotaku, Mental Floss, Yahoo, Mashable, Bustle, Redbook, Ben Carlin, Autumn, The Host, Comic Lads, Screen Crush, Fanboys Anonymous, Kelly, Chris, Django Disc, Moist Critical, Max Rudley, Will, Collider, NME, Citizen Kant, I Am Geek, GQ UK, Thai Reviews Movies, Paste Magazine, We Live Entertainment, The Pop Verse, Fuzzable, Brian, Ethan on Everything, MSN, Bam Smack Pow, John, Zach Pope, The Independent, Cinephile Corner, and Slant Magazine. That was everyone whose vote was cast in this particular poll/video. So if you're still here at the very end, thank you very much for watching. That's all I have for you today. I'll be back very soon with more Deer reviews for Disney animated classics, but until then, thank you ever so much for being here with me. Good night, good luck, and
Ogni ciò che consigli più, ma quasi mombo.
That's all.